So, here is the thing. I'm not a funny person. And this is exactly the reason why I'm going to speak about fun to you. About fun as a serious factor for not getting lost in transformation. When I was a child, transformation was an easy thing. I loved these fairy tales, like the one from Cinderella. Transformation would just happen like that. There was a fairy, she had a magic wand, and she transformed this poor little girl that was bullied by her stepsisters into a wonderful princess with a beautiful dress. And on top of that, the pumpkin was also transformed into a golden carriage, shiny golden carriage. Later, in my biology class in school, I understood transformation, the real one, is somehow in our nature. But it doesn't happen just like that. It takes mutation, and then it takes things like human evolution, natural evolution, to transform. And it takes time. So today, we have some topics and some challenges that we may want to actively transform. And maybe the natural evolution is not the strategy to fix it. So there are topics like equality, bringing health care to everybody, changing the whole education system, transforming the education system. And there are also topics like organizational transformation, which is the area I am operating in. Transformation in organizations is really a messy thing. And when you read newspapers, business magazines, they're full of the headlines, why it doesn't work and how difficult it is. So they're talking about the missing collaboration of the employees in those organizations, or about the culture clash, about the fear of failure, and many other things. But what is behind those headlines? Behind those headlines are human beings, like you and me. And why doesn't it work to transform an organization? Aren't we smart enough? Not motivated enough? I don't think that this is the case. A fact is that 70% of transformation in organization fail. Some scientists and consultancies even talk about 90%. And why should I collaborate as a human being in an organization when collaboration or learning through failure really needs more time? And at the same time, I have, for instance, a project deadline to meet. So why should I put additional work, additional time into the transformation of my organization when I don't get any reward? What I thought is, if transformation is somehow in our nature, how can we learn to use it as a positive force against all odds? And this is when I discovered design thinking. And I was amazed because the mechanism that is behind design thinking is somehow the same mechanism than the one of the human evolution. You see opportunities or a problem, you adapt quite easily or quite quick. You try out things and you learn by actively adapting. So in fact, for me, design thinking is something like an accelerated evolution. And indeed, in my workshops, in my design thinking workshops, I encountered some human beings that would accelerate the evolution and that would stand up and actively transform their direct environment. And I would like to share 3 stories of this positive activity with you today. These are not shiny, glossy transformation stories of organizations who took digital technology or used digital technology to come up with new business models and be successful again in the future. These are micro strategies of how you can change things around you and how you can quickly change things around you. So let me tell you the stories about Petra, about Julia, and Sabine today. So when I met Julia, she was a young innovation consultant, and she had just joined her consultancy network. When you're working in a consultancy, you're spending most of your time in meetings. It's around 80%. So client meetings, there are strategy meetings, there are conception meetings, budget meetings, all kinds of meetings. And when she came into a design thinking workshop, she got struck by the impact, by the effect of the things that you can see here. It's a time timer. It's a time timer where you can really see the time that is getting smaller and smaller, the amount of time is getting smaller and smaller, while you are continuing talking and talking. So she decided that she wanted to bring this time timer into her company. And the problem was a little bit that each of these things cost 50 euros and she wanted to buy 100 of them. So they were talking about a budget of 5,000 euros. She came back into her company and she told her colleagues what she had experienced, that with this time boxing and this time timer, they would get much more quicker to decisions, they would be way more effective in coming to the results of their meetings, and that they should invest this amount. What happened then is that for all of the other colleagues, it was simply not graspable. So what happened was a discussion started. And after 20 minutes of discussion, of back and forth, and whether it would really be necessary to buy these haptical time timers instead of the digital ones that were way less expensive, she stopped the meeting. So she stood up and said, give me 10 minutes, a break, and I will come back to you with something that will help us to take this decision. And this is what she did. She created a little model of this time timer, just with cardboard, scissors, and a marker, and she could actively show how this thing would work, so that the colleagues would really experience, okay, if we invest that money, this is how it's going to happen. And this is what they did. The decision was taken. My second story is from Petra. Petra was a project team leader in a healthcare company, and her big problem was she was attending a program, a design thinking program, where the teams would be supposed to work between the modules. And she called me saying, you know what, we were supposed to work on our innovation project between the modules, but guess what? The daily business was so exhausting, it took all our time, so we will come back to the course without having a result. These are things that happen. But when they came back, the team smiled and were quite confident. And they showed me this picture. What they did was taking the travel journey by train, which would last over 4.5 hours, and they transformed the space in the train. So they did their brainstorming, their open brainstorming there. They just used the vertical workspace, which was the window, to put their sticky notes. And obviously, or I guess, that also other passengers were quite entertained because nobody stopped them. So this is what she did. She just hacked the space. And finally, Sabine. Sabine is the director of a research and development department in a big global food company. Her job is to lead, to guide the teams in the local business units and the teams in the global headquarters to work together and to come up with a good research portfolio so that the budget, a given budget, can be allocated accordingly. And every time when the teams got together, it was not a conversation, it was not a meeting, it was a fight. It always got very emotional because everybody wanted to keep their budget parts, they wanted to work on their own, on their research projects, and there was also no understanding of what the headquarters team would really contribute to the whole thing. One day, Sabine decided to stop the whole thing. And what she did was the following. She asked the teams to represent the whole system of their company, especially with focus on the research and development entities, in a Lego scene. So they would show the interrelations of the different flows. Who would get whose ideas? Who would get which budget, the information flows, and also the interrelations considering the overall value creation. And for the first time, it was possible for the team members not just to be kind of stuck in their own perspectives, but to build another perspective, this helicopter perspective, on the overall relationships and interrelations. And even more, they had fun. They had fun using these little Lego characters representing, for instance, the kings and the queens of the local business units who would want to be totally independent, or the controlling warriors in the headquarters who would really patronize these kings and queens. And all of a sudden, it was also easy for them to talk about the emotions behind the fights that they would constantly have. So in fact, it was a lot about not feeling appreciated for the work that the headquarter people would do, or feeling patronized and kind of overruled by the headquarter people in terms of the local people. They kept it, they kept this Lego play, and whenever they would have questions about a thing that was quite complex, they would get it and try to literally grasp the complexity in representing it. So what do these three micro-strategies that are really examples for how to change directly things that are important in your environment, what do they have in common? Transforming collaboration, having the guts to really say, we stop this strategy meeting and we're going to play Lego, and also transforming a budget meeting into a bricolage session. Obviously, they were using design thinking, and I was asking myself, why does it work so well? Is it because some of these people are really more motivated, or is there something different behind that? And when you go into the history of design thinking, you may find an explanation, because it is born as a cocktail of intelligences. It started in the 50s when a man named John Arnold, he was a mechanical engineer, but also a psychologist, thought that it would be interesting to teach creativity to engineers. And then over time, a lot of scientific disciplines were added. So architecture, design, of course, business thinking, but also things like psychology, engineering, cognitive sciences came lately to design thinking. So it's no wonder that with design thinking, you get a full toolbox that would be that would enable you to activate not only your cognitive intelligence, but also the emotional intelligence and the haptic intelligence. Cognitive intelligence is the intelligence that we know. It's our ability to process data, it's our ability to learn, it's our ability to create causal relationships, for instance, between, oh, I'm using a time timer, I'm going to have more effective meetings. Then we have something very interesting, our emotional intelligence. This is our ability to have feelings, but also to perceive feelings with other people. It gives us access to collaborative intelligence. It gives us access to collaborative intelligence because we are able, with our emotional intelligence, to gain empathy and to be inspired by other ways of seeing the world. Which is good, because if we want to come up with solutions for complex problems, it's good to have multifaceted solutions. And finally, there is the haptic intelligence, this thinking with your hands, which is closely related to our sense of touch. Our sense of touch is obviously the sense that we develop as a first sense when we are born. And there are scientists that say we couldn't survive with this haptic sense. It gives us access to a knowledge that is our intuition. And it gives obviously also access to something about the complexity, the understanding of complex problems, the understanding of complex systems. We literally grasp the complexity with our haptic intelligence. But there is also a little more. Look at the pictures. Everybody is smiling. Obviously, people have fun. And the thing with fun is indeed something that we do in design thinking. So we're doing a lot of things that have this side effect fun. We're doing warm-ups to get ourselves in a specific mood of working and thinking. We're doing role plays. We're telling stories. We are doing prototypes, and we're going wild in our ideas. And when you go deeper into this fun factor, you see that there are indeed kind of magical substances that are produced in our body, like serotonin and endorphin. And these have, again, a little bit of a magic effect. We collaborate better when we have fun, and we learn quicker. So it's an accelerator of smartness. But what is maybe the most important thing? We dare more. We dare more, we take risks, we have less fear. So I have to confess that I'm still attracted to this transformation of my childhoodness, the Cinderella transformation. And fun will for sure not fix everything. But I'm really convinced that it has the power to activate our full potential and to transform our intelligence into creative action. So I would like to end this presentation, this talk, with a quote from Albert Einstein, which is, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." Let's use more fun seriously for transformation. Thank you.